Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Trolleheim with your host, Rabbi Anibal. Hello, Shelley. Hi, Julia, David, Brenda. Who else is around? Please say hello so I know that you're with me and with us. And yes, single shot of espresso today. I've been having lots of those because I always mention I always have a full latte at home in the morning, so keep piling up with extra caffeine is too much. So just a single shot, just a little bit. Rocky Pollack, welcome. Yes, it's very cold in Winnipeg. It's minus 33, and with the wind it's something like minus 45, which I know for many people not living in Winnipeg, I never been there. It seems to be something that is impossible. That is, there is no way. It has to be a mistake. No mistake. That's the temperature. Yeah, that's the temperature. My poor car. Hopefully, it will still start after. It's an electric. So, funny thing about electrics is it uses its own electricity to keep the car kind of warm, so you don't have to plug it in like the rest of the cars here in Winnipeg. So, never had a problem. But I usually run it for about 15, 20 minutes before I leave the building. And again, being an electric car, there is never an issue with idling, right? Which other cars, it is an issue. You are, pumping fumes all around you, but not with electrics. So that's one of the things. And I can even do it inside the garage every morning. I can warm up the car inside the garage, which is mind-blowing that you can do that with a car in this day and age. But hey, it's electric. So some of the benefits of electric cars. So far, the only non-benefit is the price tag of the car itself. But once you have it, it's amazing. Yeah. And yes, it's cold. It's cold, but we are going to try to warm up our souls studying Torah. Parshat Bo. Parshat Bo. Yeah. You'll see what we're gonna study today. But I hope everybody's day is going well. I hope so. And by the way, for people who asked about the class that Cantor Leslie and myself are going to be teaching next Monday, Cantor Leslie, hello.
Shalom. There's your music back. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. The class that we are doing with Cantor Leslie next Monday, that some people say they couldn't come, it's going to be an online component. You still have to register. So visit our website so you can register to take the class online. We're going to share the music of our 5 favorite composers and how the music actually impacted the Shari Zedek. And if this goes well, hopefully next class will be a different 5 composers, people whose music we use for services. So there you have. There you have it. We have good plans for you guys in the future. I hope you stay tuned. And that also means that if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our channels. If you are watching on YouTube, on Facebook, please subscribe so we can notify you every time we go live and every time we have new programs online for you. And you can also send an email to the Shari Zedek. That is hello@szwinnipeg.ca, and you can register for a mailing list. So you will receive a mail every time we have new activities. And so, yeah. Yeah. So today's Parsha, just a quick review of what we are going to see in this Parsha is basically the last 3 plagues and the commandments to leave Egypt. Now, which is interesting about this, and I was talking to some people here in the building this morning, that people are shocked when I mention what was the first mitzvah, the first commandment that God gave to this brand new Jewish nation, right? Now, because they became this unified group to leave Egypt, once that happened, what was the first mitzvah? What was the first commandment that God gave the Jewish people? Do you know the answer? Let me know in the chat. Meanwhile, I will have a little bit of coffee. What was the first mitzvah, the first commandment? Anything? Any idea? Nope. It was the commandment to have a calendar. The commandment of the calendar. Because God said to the Jewish people, this month will be for you the first of the month. Which one was that month? Well, was the month of Passover, which is Nisan. And I know this brings a little bit of a confusion. And how come Nisan is the first month if we know that Tishrei, the month of Rosh Hashanah, is the first month? Well, yes and no. In the Jewish world, we have two different calendars. They coexist, but they are independent. One is the biblical calendar. The biblical calendar that starts with the month of Nisan, which is the month of Passover. And we use that biblical calendar to calculate the festivals. Okay? And then we have the rabbinic calendar that starts on Tishrei, which is technically the seventh month in the biblical calendar. So, for example, Rosh Hashanah is the first of Tishrei, or it's also the first day of the seventh month, according to the Torah. Yom Kippur is the 10th day of the seventh month, but it's the 10th of Tishrei. So the difference is the rabbinic calendar is the calendar used to count years. So we know that the first of Tishrei, the year number will change. So we are now 5786. Next Tishrei will be 5787. But the biblical calendar is not about years, it's about the festivals. That's why sometimes it's a little bit of a confusion. But the fact that God asked the Jewish people as the first mitzvah to them, the first commandment, to count the time and to create their own calendar is telling me a lot, because that's one of the first things that a free nation should do. Now they are going to become responsible for their own time. Before that, the Egyptians were telling them what to do, when to do it. They were not responsible for their own time. But from now on, they will have to be responsible for their own time. Okay? It's something that is very, very, very important. So, yeah. Oh, hello, Lori. You got your coffee? Okay. Very nice. Very nice. So, with that in mind, we are going to do, hold on. Okay. Let's begin with the class. I'm going to bring it here. Ariel Lee, you have nice hot tea and a cold day. Yeah, although it's very nice in my office. I have to say, the Shari Zedek is very interesting because the colder it is outside, the nicer it is inside the building. So the temperature is very nice when it's minus 33 outside. But when outside is, let's say, minus 5, inside is very cold. And I was told it's something to do with the thermostat, and I don't understand. All I know is when outside is minus 5, minus 10, I have to wear a sweater inside. But when outside is minus 33, inside is so nice and warm. Machaye. Okay, let's talk about this text of the Parsha. And this is the plague of darkness. By the way, before we go there is something that we have to understand. Why did we read seven plagues last week and 3 plagues this week? You understand? The rabbis divided, the rabbis split the plagues into 7 in one parsha, and then 3, the last 3, in this week's parsha. Why is that? And the explanation that they give is it's because the last 3 plagues have something in common, and that is darkness. At least the way they are described. Let me explain. The last 3, they were locust, darkness, and death of the firstborn. Locust. The Torah says that the locusts were so numerous that they cover the sun. Oh, surprise. It's talking about darkness, right? Covering the sun. I think it has to be a little bit with the sun being an important god for the Egyptians. Remember, it was Ra, the god Ra. So the fact that simple insect could overshadow their God, I believe this is God, our God, making a statement. Okay? So the locust created darkness. Then plague number 9 is darkness. So that is self-explanatory. But then the 10th plague, death of the firstborn, happened during the night. So it's also during dark times. So they have something in common, and it's something I have to notice that is, according to the rabbis, the reason why the last 3 plagues were listed separately, because they belong to a different category, the category that we call of darkness. Okay? With that in mind, let's go to this couple of verses from Exodus chapter 10. Now, it says, then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, a darkness to be felt. So Moses stretched out his hands toward heaven, and there was thick darkness in all the land of Egypt for 3 days. They did not see one another, nor did any rise from his place for 3 days. But all the people of Israel had light where they dwelt. Okay? This is very interesting because there is a little bit of a controversy here about which plagues affected the Egyptians and which plagues affected the Egyptians and the Israelites. It seems to be a little bit of a consensus among the rabbis that at least maybe the first few plagues affected everybody equally, because God was making a statement not just for the Egyptian, okay, and maybe the later plagues were just for the Egyptians. Some of the rabbis said no, all the plagues were just for the Egyptians. So while the first 2 or 3 plagues, that is debatable, all the latest ones for sure were exclusively for the Egyptian. Now this one here, darkness, is very clear and very explicit that this was exclusively for the Egyptian. And the language the Torah used is very significant. Very significant, because the Torah doesn't say the plague didn't affect the Israelites. It says in the middle of the darkness, the people of Israel had light. It's a very interesting way of saying it, because at the end of the day, it may have been a way that maybe the plague did affect the Israelites, but they found a way to bring light. They found a way to bring light even amidst darkness. I don't know, sometimes I think that, what if that's the situation? It will be even more impressive, and it will be even more meaningful to read that plague that way. The way that even when there is dark around you, you can find ways to bring light. If I had to take this to our everyday lives, if I have to bring this to our everyday lives, I believe it's beautiful. The fact that we as Jews have what it takes to create light, even if we are surrounded by darkness. And I believe at the same time, this is the history of the Jewish people. When we were surrounded by darkness so often, even in our generation, we have so many dark days in a way that I don't remember this from my childhood. All these terrible things happening to the Jewish people in this day and age. But nevertheless, I feel that we find ways to bring light. So, Brenda, you said we are light unto the nations. Yes, but you realize that now when we read stories like this, like bringing light in the middle of a plague of darkness, listen to my words, a plague of darkness. Doesn't it remind you guys to what the world is going through in this generation? A plague of darkness? A pandemic of darkness? Think about that. And even within a pandemic of darkness, the Israelites were able to bring light. Interesting. Rocky, you said, but the Hebrew is passive. For them, there was light. Not that they created the light. Yeah, well, it's a Lechol Bnei Israel haya or b'mosh botam. So basically what it said, and for all the Israelites, there was light on their residences. It doesn't say how. It doesn't say if this was a miraculous light. It doesn't say that they were shielded from all the other darkness that was over Egypt. The text itself doesn't say, but it does say that they were able to bring light, or to have light, or to appreciate the light. That is something that we have to think about that as well. Because sometimes what happened is we could be living dark times, but it doesn't mean that everything is dark. Sometimes there are sparks of light around, but we don't see it. We don't appreciate it. We overlook it. And we get stuck on the dark. Yeah. Now, Shelley said the signal that Israel was special. Well, yeah, it is special because basically the whole idea of the plagues was to punish Pharaoh and the Egyptians so the Israelites could leave Egypt. So yeah, they were special because they were the recipients of God's plan to go to the promised land. So yeah, in that sense, they were absolutely special. So we are going to deal with all this in the next text, but I wanted to mention this and this kind of thick darkness. And to me, it was always interesting that the Torah says that the darkness was so intense that they did not only that they did not see one another, but also nor did any rise from his place for 3 days. I don't know about you, but have you ever been in a situation that is pitch black? Try to think the worst time that you ever been that you couldn't see a thing. You have no lights available to you, and it was very dark, but it doesn't mean that you don't move from where you are. You can still find a way. You can use your hands, right? You can use other things to move around, to go to the washroom, whatever. But here, it's difficult to imagine what kind of situation they were living or experiencing, what kind of darkness they were experiencing, that it says that they didn't even move from where they were. How paralyzed that darkness was, how paralyzing that darkness was. And then I was wondering, have you ever been in a situation that you felt it was so dark? And I'm being metaphoric now, okay? Don't take me literally. Have you ever been in a situation that it was so dark that you felt paralyzed? And then perhaps if we do that kind of introspection, we can better understand the kind of darkness that the Egyptians were experiencing. And also it will be easier to understand the contrast, the kind of light that the Israelites were experiencing when they did have something to look forward, when they did have a plan for the future, when they did have hope on a promised land. So I think this is also a way to read this parsha, not just so literally, but other ways to understand darkness and other ways to understand light and other ways to understand what darkness can do to your lives. Okay? Welcome, Amparo. Welcome to the class. So let's go to the next text. Now, Midrash Rabbah brings something very interesting. Midrash Rabbah will say, during the first 3 days of the plagues, they did not see one another. During the last 3 days, he who sat could not stand up. He who stood could not sit down. And he who was lying down could not raise himself upright. So here Midrash Rabbah is splitting the plague into 2 different stages. The first one was just darkness, that people could not see each other, but they could still do things within that darkness. This last stage was even worse because people couldn't even move. I mean, if you try to understand this literally and physically, in the material world, it's very difficult to imagine how this could be possible. Okay? What kind of darkness will generate a situation like this? And I read so many beautiful explanations about this. What happened is during the first 3 days, they did not see one another. The voice, it's dark. It's dark around you. So what do you do when it's dark around you? One explanation is when it's dark around you, you could try to find ways to bring light. But this is the thing. When you bring light, you don't bring light just for you. When you light a light, that light benefits you and everybody else who is around you. But if you're a selfish person, that is not good enough because you want the light just for you. And I know of people that they will rather be in the darkness, right? Rather be in the darkness than lighting a light that it will be for benefit of someone else. Unfortunately, this is also truth. And so that because they didn't do anything for the first 3 days, that it looks like, according to the words of the Torah, it looks like they could have done something, but because they didn't, then the last 3 days, now, nobody could do anything. It's a very interesting thing. Lori said, darkness in a cave, darkness in Jordan deserts, no lights. Huh. Okay, so let's go to the next text. Now, I always like Hasidic interpretations. And the Rebbe, Yitzhak Meir Alter, the Ger Rebbe, he said, there is no greater darkness than one in which people did not see one another, in which a person becomes oblivious to the needs of his fellow human being. When that happens, a person becomes blocked in his personal development as well, nor did any rise from his place. In other words, nobody evolved. Nobody became better. When you are in a place in life and you want to grow, we literally say that we are moving forward from one place to another place. It's very interesting. Think about that, and then you go back to the language of the Torah, and then it makes total sense. When nobody moved forward. But why is that? That is a consequence of the first statement that did not see one another. When we live in a society where people don't care about other people around them, that is that is a blockage for our personal development. And Lori, you said greed, ignorance, arrogance doesn't allow the other. Yeah, absolutely. Those are perfect examples. Perfect examples on how we perpetuate darkness every time we feed our greed, our ignorance, our arrogance, our egos, etc. Okay? So this is very important. Now, going back, then what does it mean at the same time that for the Israelites was light? It means that maybe what happened, and it's good that it's happening towards the end of the plagues because they are going to need it for the rest of their journey, and it's when they finally found a way to care for each other. And we know that this is not the case, this is not always the case for the Jewish people. We have terrible examples in the book of Genesis. Fortunately, the book of Genesis ends with unity within the Jewish people. Then we go into Egypt. We have a Hebrew slave accusing Moses when Moses was trying to help them. So there was no real unity. But now, maybe is when they start getting the message, when they start investing on their unity, which eventually it was manifested when they received the Torah on Sinai, when they are described as one body with one heart. So maybe this is the beginning of that, and that's why they were able to have light in the middle of darkness. So let me go back. When we talk about something like I mentioned before, the pandemic of darkness that is spreading around the world, what is the remedy for that? How can we bring light? How can we bring light in a pandemic of darkness? And maybe the answer is what this parsha is saying, right? Is when we start seeing each other. Not like the Egyptians, that they did not see each other. When we make an effort to see each other and to, be more attentive to the need of other people. Maybe that's what the parsha is saying. Any comments? Please let me know in the chat. I want to know what you think about this, understanding this parsha, not the parsha, this part of the parsha, not from a literal point of view, but more from a metaphoric point of view, because I think it's beautiful and consistent. The way we can read all these verses as a big metaphor that is talking to us, and especially resonates in this day and age where there is so much darkness around, right? Let's continue. Now, Pirkei Avot says something very interesting about this, about being aware of other people's needs, being there when they need us. Pirkei Avot, this is in chapter 5, Mishnah number 10. Okay, it says, there are 4 character types among people. By the way, if you go to chapter 5, Pirkei Avot, every paragraph starts with the same way. There are 4 something. Everything comes in the group of 4 in chapter 5. So this is an example. There are 4 character types among people. Number 1, the one who says, what's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. Okay? Is of an average character. And some say this is the character of Sodom. Ooh. I feel this needs a little bit of an explanation, because most people, I will say, most people go around in life saying, mine is mine, yours is yours. I mind my own business, you mind your own business. I have my problems, you have your problems, right? I'm not asking you for help to solve my problems, so don't ask me for help to solve your problems. Mine is mine, yours is yours. So Pirkei Avot says, this is the average character. Most people are like that. I guess most people were like that when this was written, and most people are like that today. But what is shocking is what Pirkei Avot says right after. But some say, careful, because this is the character of Sodom. And you know what happened with Sodom? Sodom was eventually destroyed because of the evil of their inhabitants. And of course, there is an explanation of why the rabbis connect Sodom with mine is mine and yours is yours, because the Mishnah says this is the average. What does it mean, average? Average means that some people will be above, some people will be at that level, but some people will be above that level, and some people, unfortunately, will be below that level. Okay? So if just the average is mine and yours is yours, world is not perfect, but it's still functional. The problem is, and the rabbis say it, like Sodom, when mine is mine and yours is yours becomes the law, the norm, not the average, but what everybody does. When there is nobody going above and beyond to help others. By law, it was forbidden. Nobody was allowed to help anybody else. Nobody was allowed to ask for help. So, if mine is mine and yours is the norm, that if everybody operates like that, the world cannot exist, and of course Sodom was destroyed. And that's why I wanted to explain why the Mishnah says mine is mine, yours is the average, but if you take that to extreme, that could become a Sodom. Okay? Let's continue. Number 2, one who says, what's mine is yours, but what is yours is mine. I said, this is the unlearned. Somebody who didn't learn that this is unrealistic. Okay? To think that way. It's unrealistic. Why is that? Because you can decide about your own property, but you cannot make decisions about somebody else's. Right? And if you try to take something that belongs to somebody else because you think mine is mine, yours is yours, mine is yours is mine, it's not going to go well. Okay? So this is, if somebody think that you can go and take something from somebody else because you're okay with somebody else taking what is yours, is it, you haven't learned a lesson. You never read about history. So this is not the way the world works. Okay? And then we have number 3. People who say, what's mine is yours. And what is yours is yours. Well, this is, I said, that's the pious. That is the one who, because you have no control over somebody else's property, but you have control over yours. And if you want to be a generous person, that's what the world needs. Okay? And that's why, going back to number 1, we need more number 3s. Right? More number 3s as possible. So that kind of thing, the number 1, I said, mine is mine, yours is the average. Well, we have to try to convince more and more people to be above average and to open their hearts and to help other people. Okay, so number 3. In fact, number 3 represents Abraham and Sarah, the one who literally opened their doors to everyone. He was the perfect example of a number 3. And then you have number 4. Number 4, the one who said, what's yours is mine and mine, is wicked, right? It's just like the thief. It's a thief. Number 4 is a thief. And we know that there are many people in the world that they have this kind of mentality, and that's why number 1 is the average. Because we have some number 3s, some number 4, and some number 1, and some number 2. But so as an average, mine is mine, yours is yours. So going back to this week's Parsha and the darkness and the fact that nobody saw one another, to get out of that, we need more number 3s. We need more people who will say, I'll help you. I don't want anything. I don't want anything from you. I don't need anything from you. I don't want a retribution. Right? It's just doing things because it's the right thing to do without any expectations. It's that is the reality. I want to know what you think, guys, about this text from Pirkei Avot, because I think it's very profound, And of course, if you go, I read a lot of comments about Pirkei Avot 5:10, and they are finding the rabbis connect each one of the categories with different examples within the Bible. Within the Bible. So, for example, mine is mine, yours is mine, right? The wicked, or yours is mine, mine is mine. That is a perfect example of the generation of the flood right before Noah. That was the norm. You know, yours is mine, mine is mine. And that world didn't work. Didn't work and was destroyed. It was destroyed. And then the rabbi said, mine is yours, yours is mine. And I know we don't have time to go into all details, but that is compared with the generation of the Tower of Babel. One language, remember? It was very interesting. But that model also didn't work. And the one who worked was Abraham. Mine is yours, yours is yours. Pious, Abraham. And then mine is mine, yours is yours. In moderation is okay. In moderation it's okay. Taken to the extreme is Sodom. That also didn't work. Okay, so we need more Abrahams. More people saying, mine is yours, yours is yours. Yeah. Okay, let me know what you think on the chat, okay? While I go to the next text. Now. Rocky. Hello, Brad. Welcome to the class. Rocky said, I agree that 510 is profound, but it needs a teacher to get the most out of it. Well, it's like everything if you go to the Mishnah or the Talmud, it's very good reading, but you always need some guidance, or you may not understand the full extent of what they're trying to say. Right? Sometimes they bring examples that sometimes you won't even understand why they bring those examples. It is, unless you have some kind of books that will have lots of how you call it, insight around footnotes and things. So it's very important. Yeah. Brad, you said Sodom was destroyed because they were so wicked. It seems number 4. It's even worse than number 1. Why was Sodom destroyed but not society there worse? No, Sodom, according to the rabbis, was destroyed because the mine is mine, yours is yours became a law. It was mandatory. So nobody was allowed to be generous. Because God forbid, if you're generous with me, then I will have to do something for you. So that's the problem with Sodom. That kind of society cannot survive. And we see it all the time. We see societies that they are so. But then, and God forbid, something happened. A flood, a fire. And then in those moments, you see the real heart of the society when people step up and they are generous, they donate, they help, they volunteer, right? And then you realize, okay, we are going to be okay. But if you take the mine is mine, yours is yours to the extreme, to the point that, there is a fire, houses are destroyed, community, but it's not my house, not my community. Why should I help? Mine is mine, yours is yours. If the world becomes that, that's the real danger, and that's what, according to the rabbis, was Sodom. Okay? That's a lot of marriage fights. You're here in my charity. Oh, come on, Lori. Okay, let's read the text from, now we're going to the Talmud. Okay? Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Sanhedrin, page 109a. It says, the men of Sodom waxed haughty only on account of the good which the Holy One, blessed be He, had lavished upon them. They said, since there come forth bread out of our earth, and it has the dust of gold, why should we suffer wayfarers who came to us only to deplete our wealth? Come, let us abolish the practice of traveling in our land. So this is very interesting. The Talmud is saying that, and again, as we read this, try to imagine modern examples of this kind of mentality, right? Basically what it says Sodom was blessed by God. They have abundance of everything. It was an abundant land. But then all of a sudden they look around, the citizens of Sodom, they said, look how much wealth we have. Now what happened is, you know, other people will try to come to our land to deplete our wealth. So what we have to do is to abolish all practices of allowing travelers in our land. Ha! Sounds familiar? Anyway, if a poor man happened to come there, every residence gave him a dinar. There was a currency back then, a coin back then, upon which he wrote his name, but no bread was given. Okay, so it's interesting. If somebody would come, a foreigner, a traveler, will come to Sodom, they said, "I'm hungry. Can you feed me?" No, no, no. I won't give you bread. I will give you a coin. Okay, but every coin was marked with the name of the owner of that coin. But they will give it to the foreigner. So then the foreigner will go to the store to buy bread. So the store owners recognize such coins and refuse to accept them. And so eventually the foreigner will go around with money, but to realize that nobody will accept that money and nobody will sell them food. So eventually they will die. So he said, when he died, each came and took back his dinar. Now, listen to this. A certain maiden gave some bread to a poor man, hiding it in a pitcher. But I mean, she was moved and tried to feed this guy. On the matter becoming known, they daubed her with honey and placed her on the parapet of a wall, and the bees came and consumed her body. Thus it is written, and the Lord said, the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah, because it is great. Whereupon Rabbi Judah commented in Rab's name on account of the maiden, Riba. So basically the rabbis are playing with the words. You know, the cry out was great, Rabbah, and they read Riba. So because of the cry of the maiden. It's an interesting way to justify the Midrash. But we are missing the point to understand a city that took to the extreme. The mine is mine, yours is yours. It's our wealth. I don't care about your problem. You come here, right, to my place with your problems. I don't care about your problems. Your problems are your problems. Our wealth is our wealth. We are not willing to share it. But what if I want to share it with somebody? No, it's illegal. It's illegal in this place. You're not allowed to do that. And that is what happened when we take to the extreme. Mine is mine. Yours is yours. Because if you want to be generous, then I may be pressured to be generous after. So this is the thing. I hope this is clear. What is the problem with number one of the Pirkei Avot, and why it's connected to the people of Sodom. Because this is what happened when you take it to the extreme. Of course, the Pirkei Avot said it's fine when it's an average, but not when it's all the time. It's not when it's all the time. Brenda, not a very healthy way of living. Well, not a very healthy. The city was destroyed because it was a bad example. So in the Torah, this was, I believe, Sodom was allowed to exist to make a point. Sodom was allowed to exist, and then it was destroyed to make a point, to prove a point of what is destructive to society. We don't need God to destroy such society. That society that goes that way will get destroyed by itself. Okay, and we see it all around the world. The problem with the lack of empathy and of course, in the modern world, we always talk about, because you have a balance, right? There is a balance between generosity and self-preservation. But it is okay when it's a balance. When it is not okay is when, you don't even entertain the idea of, God forbid, anybody coming to you for help. That is terrible. I don't go to you for help. You don't come to me. So it's a very arrogant, very arrogant way, and a very ungrateful way of living, because we never recognize, if we live that way, we never recognize God's blessing in everything we have. And that's the thing. Okay? Now, let's continue. Now, let's go to the Ramban, or the Nachmanides. Nachmanides. So, their intention was to stop people from coming among them. As the rabbis have said, for they thought that because of the excellence of the land, many will come there, and they despise charity. They continued provoking and rebelling against God with their ease and oppression of the poor. In the opinion of our rabbis, all evil practices were rampant among them. Yet their fate was sealed because of this sin. That means they did not strengthen the hand of the poor and needy, since this sin represented their usual behavior more than any other. Besides, since all people act righteously towards their friends and their poor, there was none among all the nations who matched Sodom in cruelty. So this is interesting, because the Torah points out, and then the Midrashim and the rabbis will explain, that Sodom had many flaws. Many flaws. Sodom was an example of immorality, for example. And we saw that when the angels came to rescue Lot from Sodom. And by the way, remember, Lot decided to go to live to Sodom. They decided to split from Abraham and go to Sodom because it was an abandoned land. At the end, Sodom was still being funded. It wasn't fully operational the way it is now, the way it was when it was destroyed. So Lot found a way to go there, and he was very wealthy when he went to live to Sodom. I guess Sodom was okay with wealthy people coming, right, to live again. Everything that is like, the world that we are living right now is or may not be a coincidence, because we also have the understanding, you can come to us, but only if you're wealthy, right? If you're wealthy, you're welcome. Otherwise, you're not. So, of course, Lot was welcome into Sodom because he was very wealthy, thanks to Abraham. But again, when the angels came to rescue Lot from Sodom, I remember Lot offered, people of Sodom wanted to rape the angels. They didn't know they were angels. They wanted to rape them. Bad thing, right? Lot said, no, God forbid, don't do that. Rape my daughter instead, right? I said, but he was trying to protect the angel, but in a very strange way. All bad things. But the rabbis, especially Nachmanides, will say that all those bad things God didn't like. But that was not the reason why Sodom was destroyed. It was destroyed because there was no generosity. Because generosity was not accepted. Generosity was not tolerated. And anybody who will dare to open their mouth to advocate for generosity, for opening their hearts and their houses, will be put to death in a very cruel way. So again, if this is not a modern, a contemporary message, I don't know what else is, because we are all living times like this, right? So in any case, I don't know what you think about this, but I think that sometimes I recognize that the world is adopting some Sodom-like attitudes instead of taking a more balanced approach. Anyway, let's continue. Now, another rabbi, it says, the commentaries explain that the lifestyles of Sodom was one of total emphasis on materialistic gains and overindulgences. They lived with the message of honey and disdained the message of salt. Now, again, this rabbi is commenting on the midrash of the maid being, covered in honey. That it's for him, for this rabbi, for Mikhail Golshevsky, the concept of honey goes beyond. There's a profound meaning of why they use honey. So he said, because they live with the message of honey and disdain the message of salt. How so? Well, that is why Lot's wife refused to give salt to the poor, and why the people of Sodom chose to use honey to kill the girl who gave to the poor, since giving to the poor is unacceptable in a society that places all its emphasis on material gains. So they cover her with honey to demonstrate that here we live with a message of honey. But in the end, Hashem punished Sodom with sulfur and salt, as if it's to say that what Sodom lacked was the message of salt, and which is very interesting because it's honey being related to self-indulgence, right? Self-indulgence. When you say, and even when you have something that is not so nice, what do? We sugarcoat it. So we don't have to deal with anything that is harsh and uncomfortable. We sugarcoat it. And what salt, it's not the same, but salt is something that is necessary for life. And honey is not really necessary. We do it because we like the taste, the flavor. So it's a very interesting thing that at the end of the day, yes, the wife of Lot was punished as a statue of salt. There's all the midrashim related to this, right? And yeah. So let's see if I have another. Oh, I wanted to talk this. We have only 3 minutes, but there is an actual halacha. It's actually a Jewish law. Let's see if I can go quickly over this so you will understand to what extent we avoid the traits of the Sodomites, of the people of Sodom, especially the lacks of generosity. There is a concept. I will read it quickly. Rabbis have said that in a situation where a person has the right benefit from the property of his friend, we won't have time to go this. Sorry. But I wanted to say something here. It's called Kofin al Midat Sedom, which is usually translated as, how you call it? Emulating the traits of Sodom. Okay, but Kofin is not really emulating, it means enforcing, not just emulated, but implementing the traits of Sodom, and that is a mitzvah. Is one of the rabbinic commandments that we have to avoid implementing in our lives, the traits of Sodom. And I will say that the most important one is not about all the the sexual things that we know the Sodomites did, but the most important is the lack of generosity. And going back to the beginning of this parsha, the beginning of the class, is the fact that when we see so much darkness around the world, do we look at each other? Or we behave, or otherwise we are behaving not just like Sodom, but also like the Egyptians, that we also have a mitzvah not to emulate, right? So the two things are actually connected to each other. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Yes, I'm doing Kabbalat Shabbat tomorrow. I am. And also don't forget that Saturday morning we have the special service with the Holocaust Remembrance Day. Okay? We have special scholar in residence. Kelly Hibbert is coming. He's an educator. He is an expert. He worked with schools, high schools, teaching them about the Holocaust. So he's going to speak during the service. Instead of a sermon, we are going to have a presentation by Kelly. And then he's going to stay after Kiddush to also teach a second session back. We're going to come back to the chapel to learn with him more in detail. So don't miss that thing. We're going to have also lots of beautiful songs, special songs related to the Holocaust by Cantor Leslie. So hopefully you will all be there, either in person or online. Okay. Thank you so much. Please give us a thumbs up for the class, and if you haven't registered, please subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe. And if you miss anything of this class, it's going to be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 Central, 8 p.m. Central. Okay, 8 p.m. Central Time. Thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe and hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.